Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Hello there, and welcome inside yet another edition, the Bmore Baseball Podcast. He is the 14-year MLB veteran. He's in the Orioles Hall of Fame. Two things that I haven't accomplished. I'm Jerry Coleman. He's Mike Bordick. We're producing brand new content every day on our X page, Facebook, and Instagram. It's all at one address, Bmore Sports Pod. That's Bmore Sports Pod. That's also where you can watch the podcast as well. Also on YouTube. And of course, our partners. Grateful to them at BaltimoreSun.com. Just ahead, episode number 8, Bordy. We're going to speak with former MLB umpire Al Clark, get his thoughts on the game today and his 26 years wearing the blue behind the plate and on the bases. Plenty of Orioles stories. We'll also examine the Orioles deciding to play Jackson Holliday at third base and the curious case of one Framber Valdez. However, let's bring in our featured guests. They are all brought to us by our friends at Science and Kirk. Injured in an accident? You've got to call Science and Kirk. If you have a phone, you have a lawyer, call 1-800-LAWYERS or visit youhavealawyer.com. Al, thanks for joining us for the podcast. Great catching up. What are you up to these days? Because 26 years, you were a major league umpire. You went to jail. You wrote a book. What's going on with you these days?
Well, I'm kind of taking it easy, retired. I'm doing a lot of traveling. I just got back from Europe. I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying the fruits of our labor, as Mike, I'm sure, can attest. Like so many of our Spanish brothers have said, baseball has been very, very good to me, and we're taking advantage of it.
That's awesome. Al, listen, man, you had such a great career. I want to know how it started, though, because I got a feeling that most umpires got into the game because they probably weren't the best baseball players. Is that true?
Well, Mike, there's two answers. One is the wise guy answer, and one is the true answer. The wise guy answer is when I realized it was a whole lot easier to call a curveball rather than hit one, I became an umpire. The real answer is, no one grows up wanting to be an umpire. You grow up wanting to be a player. And when that hard, harsh realization sets in that you're not good enough to be a player, you set your sights elsewhere. And for me, I had umpired as a junior in high school as a second summertime job in and around the Trenton, New Jersey area, umpired all the way through college. Got out of college. I taught for a year. I did not necessarily enjoy that. I wrote for a year. I did enjoy that, but quite honestly, I wanted to eat steaks instead of hamburgers the rest of my life. I found out how to get into organized baseball as an umpire, went to umpire school, was very fortunate, spent only 4 years in the minor leagues, which is unheard of in today's world, and spent 26 years in the big leagues before I got my unconditional release.
Well, we definitely want to talk about all of that, the 26 years, the World Series, the playoff games, and so many historic moments throughout the course of baseball history. When you found out that you were going to be part of a crew, like a Cal Ripken 2-1-3-1 game, or Randy Johnson's first no-hitter, or a 300th win by a pitcher, what was the feeling you got inside, and how did you approach that?
Jerry, some of the things were happenstance. Some of them were by design. No one can predict when Nolan Ryan is going to win his 300th win, or that Randy Johnson is going to throw a no-hitter. Or I just realized, it was brought to my attention, I was actually behind the plate when Ken Griffey Jr. got his first major league hit in Seattle, a double to left center field, which is kind of cool to bring back. It was a whole lot more important to Kenny than it was me. But those things are kind of cool. We found out that our crew was going to be in Baltimore a long time before that, before the September 5th and 6th. And I don't know why we were chosen, other than the fact I was working with Larry Barnett at the time, and we had a senior crew, and it was a pretty respected crew. And barring any rainouts, now umpires get their schedules a whole year in advance, and the crew chiefs get to choose that schedule. Back then, we only got a schedule 30 days in advance, 30 days before that month. And we were told, our crew was told, a couple of months before the schedule came out, that we would be in Baltimore that weekend. And there were a couple of things. As a matter of fact, I was on a Zoom with some Baltimore Oriole people just a couple of weeks ago and told this story that literally nobody knows. We were in Cleveland going to Boston, down to Baltimore for that weekend. And of course, I mean, in spite of what some people might think, umpires are not idiots. And we knew what our rotation was going to be. And the way that it was going to play out without any rainouts or anything, if we stayed in rotation, I would have had the 21-31 record-breaking game behind the plate, knowing that that game was going to live forever, because that's a record that I don't think will ever be broken again. Larry Barnett, who was a senior guy in the league and very respected, as you know, Mike, he was not gonna be the plate. So we decided, and I decided that, out of respect, and umpires have a lot of respect for umpires, we would switch, or I asked him if he wanted to switch and have that game behind the plate 21-31. So going from Cleveland to Boston, we changed our rotation so no one would notice going from Boston to Baltimore that we had changed the rotation, and the most senior guy in the league, one of the most respected guys in the league, would be behind the plate for the 21-31 game. And then I was behind the plate for 21-30.
There was a lot that came
That's
out
incredible,
of that series. Yeah. There was some controversy. I mean, there was memorabilia that apparently you kept. It was reported and sold. And I think Cal took issue with that, whatever came in terms of settling things.
Well, there wasn't any. There was a whole lot of stuff. I was dealing with a fellow in North Jersey that was a collector. I made a mistake. It was not only just the Cal Ripken game, it was a couple of other things that I was involved in. And he had asked me to sign letters of authenticity for some of the items that I had given to him. And my problem was that I had signed too many letters of authenticity and for items that I had given him. He asked me to rub some baseballs, and I did, and I was wrong, and I accept full responsibility for what I did. But some of the items that he did sell, and of which I never received a dime for, and that was proved by both the IRS and the FBI, I did it because he was a pal of mine. And as Mike knows, you do things for your friends when you're in the position that we were in. And I made a mistake. The guy took advantage of me, and that is not an excuse for my actions. I accept full responsibility for what I did. And the quirky thing is, and this is really something. As you guys know, I spent 120 days incarcerated. And I pled guilty to one count of mail fraud. Had I sent those letters of authenticity that I had signed through either FedEx or UPS, it would not have been federal mail fraud. But because I sent them in the U.S. mail, it became federal mail fraud. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that quirky?
Yeah.
The rules of the game, Al. The rules of the game, right? Little quirky
rules.
rules.
That's right.
Like
the rules of the game. But and I wrote about it in my book. You mentioned, Jerry, that I did write a book, and I did. I'm humbled by how successful the book has been, and I talk about all these things that I was privy to, eyewitness to. Unlike an executive player, coach, or manager, I talk about it from an ump's eye view. And it's a little twisty, it's a little quirky. The feelings that we had going into games like that are going to live for an awful long time. And like you guys said, I was very, very humbled and privileged to be eyewitness to a lot of things. I was there at the Earthquake World Series in San Francisco. I was there when Bucky Dent hit the home run in 1978.
Dang.
I was there, Dave Righetti's no-hitter in New York against the Red Sox, probably and arguably the best rivalry in professional sports, the Yankees and Red Sox. And geez, so many other things. There in Baltimore, as a matter of fact, the only scheduled 5-game, single-game series was between the Yankees and Orioles. And at Old Memorial Stadium, Mike, on 33rd Street, it drew 249,000 people in 5 days.
Wow.
And that's kind of cool
Incredible.
stuff.
Was that
I opened Camden Yards. I opened the Jake in Cleveland. I opened the ballpark in Arlington, closed the huge cavernous Cleveland Stadium in Cleveland. And so my career has been, wonderful. I've led an unbelievably wonderful life, with the highs being so damn high and wonderful, and the lows being pretty low. But, I do a lot of motivational speaking, and I've done a lot of motivational speaking. And one of the things that I tell people, that I try to impress on people, no matter how good you are, no matter how low things get, never, ever allow one thing to define who you are as a person, and always be looking forward. Happiness is a choice,
That's great message right there, Al. Hey, I got a question. Listen, I grew up playing in the era that you umpired in, and I personally think that was the golden era of baseball. There weren't a lot of rule changes going on. There were some strife between owners and players and things like that, but the game was pretty pure, and the umpires, I think, were probably at the peak of their game. I think everybody kind of understood what umpires did, that had their own strike zones and things like that, but you could actually communicate with umpires, and you knew which guys had little edges about them, which guys didn't. What I'd like to know is, who influenced you the most when you came up through the minor leagues? Because I had influences too. You and I had a very similar path, 4 years in the minor leagues, an opportunity to go to the big leagues, and loved every second of it. Was there an umpire that influenced you from the jump that really changed how you umpired on a daily basis?
Michael, that's a great question, and the answer is a most definite yes. My first major league crew chief was a fellow by the name of Bill Haller. He passed away a couple of years ago now, and I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I'll tell you a story that had an unbelievable influence on me. We got to the big leagues, I got to the big leagues in 1976. I had a really, really good first couple of months where, everything was going right. I was gaining, earning, and getting more confidence all the time. We were in Detroit, the old ballpark, a great ballpark, Mike, as you remember, Tiger Stadium. I was working second base. This is a great story, guys. I was working second base, and there are 2 outs in the ninth inning. There's a fly ball to medium center field. I go out on it, but I kind of jaked it a little bit. I didn't go out like I should have gone out. I didn't hustle on it, and the ball was caught and the game was over. Bill Haller, who was working home plate, came across the mound, across the field, onto the mound, over the mound, and he was about 6'3", 6'4". He grabbed me by the collar of the shirt, literally turned my collar, and said some expletive things to me. In essence, just because you put on a big league umpire's uniform doesn't mean you're a big league uniform. And if you're going to jake it out here, get your ass out of here, because we don't want you. We don't need you. We don't need any of that kind of attitude here. You're going to work hard every day. You're going to hustle every day. You're going to give this game everything that this game deserves. And that moment made a huge difference in the way that I umpired for the next 25 and a half years. There wasn't a day that I didn't go out onto the field thinking and working hard, because the game deserved it, the players deserved it, and I wasn't going to cheat them or cheat myself, or cheat our game.
Wow, that's quite a tale. And to do that on the field in front of the fans? Wow.
In front of the fans, in front of the players, everybody.
Was Bill Holler, was he the Earl Weaver argument guy?
Yes, exactly, Mike. Exactly.
I knew I remembered that name.
Yeah.
Al, you were umpiring when Earl was around. Did you have any blow-ups with Earl?
Earl tasted my thumb one time. He covered home plate as a young umpire. He threw his hat down, and I ejected him, which was not very hard to do. Earl was the best way to describe Earl, and Mike, you might understand this. He was like an itch in the middle of your back. He was always there, and you couldn't quite scratch it. I've done some speaking and some engagements with Rick Dempsey, and we would talk about Earl a little bit, and Rick would tell me, he says, listen, I wasn't really the bad guy that you guys think I was, but Earl was always on me to get on you guys.
That's great. That's great. Al, I have a kind of a story, a question for you too. You gotta help me with this. There are 3 mysteries in the game that every now and then I'll start thinking about it. It's like, what the heck just happened? And you're part of them. Let me list them off. The first one is in 2001, Danny's Baez threw behind me. And to this day, I have no idea why he actually threw behind me. The second one, it was in 2000, and Robin Yount, who was the first base coach for the Diamondbacks, approached me on the field and accused me of cheating, like stealing signs. And to this day, I feel uncomfortable that Robin Yount accused me of stealing. I never did that stuff. And the next one was in the early 90s. I was a young player. We were in Milwaukee, County Stadium.
Great
and I'm
stadium.
out at second base. And you came up to me and you said, you're starting to get a bad reputation in this league. You better straighten out, much like Bill Holler said to you. Now, I was a very timid young player. I wouldn't say boo to anybody, and I've never told anybody that. I never approached a coach or anything. And I'm wondering, what led you to approach a young player like me? And do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that specifically, but let's go in order.
Mike does.
Yeah, I'm sure. The Baez thing, I don't remember, but when we act on the field, we are always looking at what happened before.
Yeah.
And umpires react. We're not active. We react to situations that occur. And our job is to try and maintain as much decorum for the game on the field as we can. And sometimes that means taking control of the situation. And that's I don't know what, the situation with Baez and why he threw behind you, but outside of him just losing the ball, which of course can happen, what happened in the city in a series before that where an Oriole hit one of the Baez's teammates? Mike, as you know, players have long memories.
Yeah.
And maybe something happened. I don't know, but I'm sure it was all about controlling the game.
Sure.
It's funny. Our job is just like going to an office where you're going to like some people and some people you're not going to like. And some people are going to like you and some people aren't going to like you. The situation with you, Mike, I don't remember it per se, but as an umpire that was, a little bit respected out on the field, I would see players. I would want to know players, and guys that I thought were worthwhile. I would talk to guys that I would think would have respect for the game, for the umpires, for the fans, for their teammates. As a getting to be senior umpire with a little bit of respect. Well, it was kind of my job, I felt, to talk to young guys like Mike.
Yeah.
That if I can defer and deter them from creating a bad situation for themselves, and by so doing for myself also, and players need to know that umpires aren't the enemy. I don't care who wins and who loses. I care about doing the best job I can out on the field every day. The enemy was the team in the other dugout. So if I could say something to a Mike Bordick, a young Mike Bordick, that takes his focus away from getting on umpires, because we're human also. If you screw with me, I'm probably going to screw with you. And that's the reputation I had, Mike. You know that. I'll let you play as long as you can. But if you screw with me, I'm going to screw with you. And by virtue of the uniform I wore, I was probably going to win that argument.
I love that. Yeah. No, that was the beauty, I think, of the game back then. You guys,
that's right.
You guys had a personality. We could do that. I remember Ken Kaiser turned around to me one day. I said, Ken, I need you to move a little bit, man. You're blocking the hitter. I can't see the hitter. And he literally turned around and dropped an F-bomb on me. I said, all right, kid, I'll move. Thanks.
Kenny, he was a little different. I worked with him for 26 straight spring trainings in Florida, in South Florida, down when the Orioles were in Miami and the Yankees were in Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. My God, it's hard to believe that there aren't any major league teams south of West Palm Beach now. When there used to be, the Orioles used to be in Miami, the Yankees in Fort Lauderdale, the Braves in West Palm Beach, Montreal in West Palm Beach, and the Texas Rangers in Pompano Beach. And now nobody is down there. It's hard to even fathom. But I don't know. We're all in this thing together, and that's the way I always felt about it. And I loved putting on that major league uniform every day. I mean, can you imagine a red-blooded American guy? My entire adult life, I put on a big league uniform every day, and my office was Camden Yards and Yankee Stadium and Fenway Park and Tiger Stadium and Comiskey Park, et cetera, et cetera. Can you think of a better way to live your life, than to do that?
No, that's pretty cool. And Mike, it stuck with Mike for over 25 years that you told him he was building or gaining a reputation. He better act accordingly. I got to ask you, though, let's bring it back to Cal Ripken Jr. I mean, what is your history and relationship with number 8? Because you did throw him out of a game once, I believe, in '97, which is a rarity. He didn't get thrown out too much.
He was thrown out 3 times, once by Drew Coble. Tim. He was only thrown out 3 times. And I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you the story about my ejection with him. It was a hot Sunday afternoon in Baltimore. It had been rumored, and I don't know this to be accurate or not, but it had been rumored that it was during the streak, and Cal's back was hurting, and the Oriole club was going on a 3.5-hour trip down to Dallas. The streak was intact, and Cal perhaps wanted to get a little more treatment on his back. And I was behind the plate, and he knew exactly what to say to whom to get the desired reaction. And I know that, I mean, that was like throwing God out of heaven. Ejecting Cal in Baltimore. It was quite a traumatic day. Davey Johnson was the manager of the Orioles at the time, and Cal went on a tirade, after the ejection, and whatever it was. I was in the airport after the game, and on ESPN, Cal was being interviewed, and of course was talking about that, and he literally said, I saw the pictures after the game, and Al may have been right. And maybe I overreacted to the situation. Perhaps not saying anything about his bad back or rumored bad back, and getting worked on, and taking 3 hours off during the game, getting worked on, and maybe the flight to Dallas, 3.5 hours to Dallas from Baltimore, wasn't quite as tough. And of course, he played the next day, and the streak was intact.
Wow. Hey, Al, did you work the series? I feel like you were the home plate umpire when the lights went out
Yeah, I sure was.
Baseline.
I sure was.
Oh, baby.
Mike, that's another great story.
Yeah.
I was the crew chief then.
Al, there's a terrible rumor out there that the lights went out. It was designed to protect Cal Ripken. I was at that game. I have shot this rumor and conspiracy theory down for decades now. And I don't know if you know about it, the Kevin Costner involvement and all that. Can you set the record straight?
I know for a fact that Cal was there. And I know for a fact that Cal was there right from the beginning. The Joe Foss was the general manager or one of the directors of the Orioles at the time, and he is the fellow with whom I was working. It was between games of a doubleheader, and Mike, this is such a great story, such a great Orioles story. I was between games of a doubleheader, and the Seattle club was there, and Randy Johnson was going to pitch the second game. And the lights go out between innings, between ball games, and Foss comes down, and he kept on telling me it's going to be another half hour. Evidently, I don't know this to be true or accurate or not, but was told that there had been an auto accident outside the ballpark that hit a transformer that blew out the lights in the ballpark. And so, they were trying to get it fixed, and it was taking time and everything. And I'm going back and forth between Davey Johnson, who was the manager of the Orioles, and Lou Piniella, who was the manager of the Seattle club. Mike Mussina was the player rep for the Orioles at the time. Brady Anderson was the leadoff hitter. Eddie was there. Cal was there. A couple of other guys were there. And finally, Foss tells me it's for sure the game's going to start in 40 minutes, and we're going to get us in and everything else. So I go over and tell Piniella exactly what Foss told me, and he said, okay, I'm ready to play. I said, Randy is going to pitch. He's going to go down to the bullpen. But, Al, I got to tell you, I got to be honest with you. Randy's going to pitch the second game, but he's had 5 or 6 beers. So I said, okay. So I go over to the other side, to the Orioles side, go into the dugout, go into the hole there. And Mussina is there. Cal is there. Brady is there. Eddie is there. And a couple of other guys were there, of course, with Davey Johnson. And I told those guys in a circle, and they're all listening to me. I said, listen, we're going to get started in 40, 45 minutes. Randy's gone down to warm up. But I got to tell you guys something that Lou told me. He said, Randy's going to pitch, but because of the delay, Randy's had 4 or 5 beers.
Oh my God.
And Brady Anderson looked at everybody. Brady was your leadoff hitter, Mike. He looked at everybody and he said, wait a minute. I'm not going out there and hitting with him. 5 or 6 beers, 4 or 5 beers? Are you kidding me? I'm not playing. And the second game was canceled.
Oh my gosh.
So it had nothing to do with you. What you're saying?
That's right. It had nothing to do with the lights at all.
And nothing to do with Kevin Costner either.
Oh my goodness.
No, God, no, of course not.
Just had to set the record straight, Al. I mean, the conspiracy theorists are all over the place out there.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
Randy Johnson. I didn't know he loved the Natty Bows like he did.
Yeah, he did.
Did you get a chance to talk to Randy when he was a little under the influence and say, hey, how many hours did you sober up?
No, of course not. Randy was a little aloof. He was a good guy, and he was obviously a great pitcher once he learned how to pitch. But no, we didn't have very much interaction with him. I must have had him dozens of times behind the plate. And I'll tell you a story, another great umpire story, Mike. We're in Arizona, and he was on the mound, and he was questioning some pitches, during the first couple of innings. This was before the National League adopted the designated hitter rule. And he had given me some guff. He was looking in, and he was, gesturing. His body language was not the best. Well, about the 5th or 6th inning, he was the first up. So I wandered over to him, And I said, Randy, I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I said, how many times do you think I've had you behind the plate? And he looked down at me. He's 6'10", I'm 5'7". And he looked down at me and he said, well, a lot. And I looked up at him and he said, do you really think that you gesturing out there and saying anything is going to intimidate me even a little bit? He looked down at me, got a kind of a wry smile on his face, and he says, no. I looked up at him and I said, well, cut this shit. And we never had a problem after that at all.
All right, nice.
I love it.
Hey, when you were in prison, it was told and written in the book that you tried to start, and you did start an umpiring school.
I did.
Jail. How did that go? Did anyone ever make a career out of it?
Oh, I don't know if anyone made a career out of it, but it was I went to the warden and I said, listen, there's a lot of dead time in when you're incarcerated, and idle hours can be a terrible enemy. So I went to the warden and I said, listen, I've got this skill and I spent 26 years in the big leagues. Let's do something constructive and create an umpire school. Maybe some of these guys can go back to their communities when they're released and add something and give something to the communities. And she thought it was a pretty good idea. We ended up having like a 5-week course, both a skull session with blackboards and out on an athletic field that was there in the Petersburg prison where I was, camp that I was, and it worked pretty good. There were about, 25, 30 guys that partook, and they all got certificates of completing the course. And I don't know, it worked out pretty good.
That's a great story. That is great.
Also, when I got out, and like I said, I was always a positive person, and I made a mistake, and I paid a very dear price for it. But when I got out, I started a business called AreYouReadyForJail.com, and I, it was for people who never thought they'd be involved in the system, like I never thought I'd be involved in the system, and it affected, when someone is involved, it affects a whole lot more people than just that person who is going away. It affects everybody in their family, their friends, and everything else. So what I did was start this www.areYouReadyForJail.com business to help people who never thought that they would be involved, who to trust, who not to trust while being incarcerated, what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, when not to do it. And it ended up actually helping quite a few people. And I did it for about 3 years. And it was pretty good.
That's awesome. All right. In closing, do want to ask you, Al, about this ABS system. Are you happy that you're not umpiring today with the computers and robots and people in New York impacting the men in blue?
Jerry, I am so glad I worked in the era that I did. Mm-hmm. Mike hit it right on the head a little while ago. I think the personality has been taken out of the game. The arguments that between an umpire and a player, coach, or manager, that allowed me to blow off some steam too. It created so much good personality in the game. Show me a fan that doesn't like that. Show me a player that doesn't like to voice his opinion, if you will. I didn't mind an argument at all. What I minded, where the players are concerned, if someone was just totally unfair, knowing full right well that players are there to win. And like umpires, players have tremendous, tremendous pride. No one likes to be told you can't play anymore. As an umpire or a sports official at that level, there are only a couple of people that say no to professional athletes. Yeah. Think about it. PR people say yes. Hotel people say yes. Restaurant people say yes. Women say yes. There are only literally 2 factions of people that say no.
The media and the umpires, right?
Well, their current wives
Okay.
And the umpire, strike 3, you're out. Sit down.
Wow.
You can't play.
I say no to a lot of players. I'll tell you that. I don't care who they are. I got to ask you though, was there one player that you really didn't get along with throughout your career that you're glad you don't have to see that person anymore outside of Bordick?
Well, it probably wouldn't be right for me to tell you his name, but his initials were Frank Robinson.
You want to answer that?
Wait, you threw him out of a game before the anthem got over.
Yeah, during the national anthem down in Texas, he and I had an issue. Now, Frank and I just didn't get along. But let me tell you this, Jerry. I mean, that's another whole story for a different time. But there are so many more good guys and class guys that put on big league uniforms than the opposite. We're all there for the same reason. We're all members of a fraternity that we all are very, very proud to be a part of. Now, my existence in Major League Baseball didn't end the way that I would have liked it to end. However, no one can take away the 26 years that I earned being there, nor can they take away the experiences that I've got. So with that all said, my God, I'm the most fortunate person in the world. I mean, like I say, think about it. I put on a big league uniform every day I went to work for 26 whole years.
Well, it has been our privilege to have you. It's been nothing but a pleasure to hear these stories.
Thank you.
I have to put it back on again, Bordy. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, great catching up, Al. Good to see you, man. Thank you so much.
It's good to see you too. Jerry, it's good seeing you. And anytime you guys need a filler, give me a call.
Oh, you're not a filler. You're a good guest. Thanks for taking the time, Al. We really do appreciate it once again.
To help explain how much fun I have playing Fast Play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery, I brought in a home plate umpire. When I have the chance to win instant cash, it makes me feel far out. And if I'm selected as contestant of the game, I can win $500 plus another $500 for every Orioles.
All right.
And $5,000 for every Grand Slam. Doesn't it make you wanna
Play ball.
make the right call this season and play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery?
Here's something the car insurance companies don't want you to know. If you've been injured in a car accident, the insurance companies are already working against you. They have a team full of agents whose job is to give you as little as possible. That's why you need an experienced lawyer. Science & Kirk has been fighting for accident victims for over 50 years. They know how to handle the insurance companies and know how to get you maximum compensation. Don't go it alone. Remember, you have a lawyer. Call Science & Kirk today or visit youhavealawyer.com.
Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
Hey Oriole fans, it's Oriole Hall of Famer Mike Bordick here.
During my 14 years in the big leagues and over 1,700 games, I put a lot of miles on my body. Listen, I used to judge my days by how I'd walk down the stairs. Now I don't even think about it. I'm almost 60 years old and my legs have never felt better. That's why I trust the Good Feet Arch Supports. They've made a real difference in keeping me active, whether I'm coaching, staying involved in the game that I love, or just enjoying pain-free life here in Baltimore. Thanks to the Good Feet store, I'm still in the game.
Visit the Good Feet store today for a free fitting and test walk. Take the first step toward a pain-free life.
Cravings can strike at any time, and Royal Farms is ready to fuel your mornings with fresh brewed coffee, paired with protein-packed breakfast sandwiches and a side of those crispy hash browns. And when the midday hunger hits, bite into a world-famous chicken sub, loaded with flavor and leveled up with a side of Western fries. And when it's time to bring home a crowd pleaser, don't miss out on our world-famous chicken meals, hand-breaded and a hit with the whole family. Whenever you crave, Royal Farms is ready.
Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time. Looking for a great place to watch the game, bet the races, and get in on the action without heading to the big city? Head to Greenmount OTB in Hampstead, where the action is always on. Watch every game and race on more than 40 big screen TVs while wagering on live horse racing or the big game at the Bet Park Sportsbook. You can bet at the window, at a kiosk, or right from your phone with the Bet Parks mobile app. And grab great food from Greenmount Station, home of Maryland's best crab cakes. Then keep the fun going next door at Greenmount Bowl. Greenmount OTB. Big time action in a hometown setting. 21 and over only. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
We'll advance to For the Birds, which is sponsored by our friends over at the Maryland Lottery. Play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery. You could win instantly or win cash for Orioles home runs as a contestant of the game. As always, please play responsibly. So Jackson Holliday going through another rehab. He's only played 2 games at the pro level at third base, starting to get reacclimated there because the Orioles, they have a third base problem. Colby Mayo isn't the answer. Jordan Westberg isn't walking through that door again anytime soon. What about moving Jackson Holliday, who came up as a shortstop, has played second base? Is the transition to third base that simple?
No. This is a reactive move, obviously, because like you said, third base, the numbers just aren't there and they need more production on third base. But I don't agree with this at all. And I really think if you look at the Orioles infield over the last, 4 or 5 years, this is what they try to do. And I talked the other day about, not everybody is Johnny versatility. I appreciate a versatile type of player, but our goal is to get perfection, the best you could possibly be. Polish this diamond up, baby, and let him go at one position so he learns all the nuances. Jackson Holliday was a shortstop. They challenged him to move to second base because they like his athleticism. It took him a year to learn just how to move and become a somewhat average second baseman. And I'm not even saying he's really good just yet. It's going to take another couple years before he understands the nuance and the detail to the moves out there and the angles at second base. It's just not as easy as saying you can catch a baseball, go out there in the field and do it. Different side of the field. Third base is just as challenging. The angles are incredibly hard. That throw is the most challenging throw in all of baseball. And if you ask me, and it might not mean a lot to a young player right now, but that is my concern. Here it is, a kid that all of a sudden at 2 years right at second base, so his arm is shortened up. He's not used to the shortstop throw, and now you're going to move him around to third base and have him all of a sudden putting different stresses on his arm and elbow again. So I worry about the health right there and just the challenge in and of itself. The angles at third base, just not as easy as slapping a card over and saying this guy should play third base because he knows how to field a ground ball.
Yeah, I think people believe just because you played shortstop or second base, you can make that transition simply to third base just because, you field ground balls for a living.
Yeah, well, they've done it with every Oriole infielder. Westberg has played second, short, and third in the big leagues. How about Mayo? Look what this experiment's going. He went from third to first, back to third. It's a head scratcher. He can't figure it out. The decisions, the strategic decisions in the organization are being missed, and all of a sudden trying to figure stuff out at the big league level is so unfair, I think, to these young players. Learning where a player is going to thrive is supposed to be done in the minor leagues. And it seemed like all these guys hit their way right to the big leagues, and now they're trying to figure out where they can be the most valued defensively on the field.
Well, I think we can say in closing, the defense can't get any worse at the hot corner than it is right now. So they're looking for a solution. I don't know if Jackson Holliday is a solution. I'm on board with you. All right, we advance to Beyond Baltimore, brought to you by Relief Shop, Baltimore's best adult use and medical cannabis dispensary with 700 plus unique menu items, and home delivery is always available for medical patients, courtesy of Relief Shop. They're right there in the heart of Charm City on Cathedral Street. All right, the Framber Valdez suspension, the curious case of Framber Valdez, the Tigers pitcher. He gave up consecutive home runs against the Red Sox and then decided to throw at Trevor Story, caused a bench-clearing brawl. His manager got involved. He got suspended 5-6 games. His manager got suspended for a couple of games as well. I don't know what this does for clubhouse chemistry. You bring in a guy who had a nasty reputation coming in. He crossed up his catcher a year ago in Houston. Maybe that's one of the reasons the Astros didn't want him back. But there was this reputation he had, which I really didn't believe until now. It's become a pattern, Mike.
Yeah, it seems like it, and it's too bad. I think, the Orioles were in the hunt, I think, for Framber Valdez, and I think a lot of teams. He was a very sought after left-handed pitcher. He's had a number of very solid years down in Houston, but there was a red flag last year, crossing up the catcher, hitting him with, in the chest protector, a very dangerous move right there, showed his frustration on the mound. And if it was a more veteran catcher, they might have had a fight right there on the field. Listen, I've been on teams with somewhat toxic type players. And I think for the most part, when you're on a roster where you have one of those type of players, you accept it because they're obviously have great talent. They're in the big leagues. You don't want it to be that much of a distraction and so much drama every time they take the field. And we saw that, unfortunately, here in Oakland, or I say Oakland, in Baltimore with Albert Bell, right? He was kind of that red flag guy, but I loved him as a teammate because you could almost guarantee 30 home runs, 100 plus RBIs. Unfortunately, he got hurt. So I think a lot of times players can look past that kind of toxicity as long as they're producing on the field. Barry Bonds was, I think, a very toxic player. We saw him fight with teammates in the dugouts. Jose Canseco, when I was coming up with the A's, was that type of toxic player and got different kind of preferential treatment. When you want to win, though, I believe that everybody's got to be pulling the right way. When you get that one type of player that has that little toxic, and I hate saying the word cancer, but that cancer in the clubhouse, baseball is so hard, okay? It's a very unforgiving sport, and misery loves company, especially at the highest level. So if you're the guy that said, oh, well, these guys are doing this and you got excuses, trust me, you will have somebody at your side saying, yeah, I agree. And it snowballs, man, and that's when you lose the clubhouse. So you got to be careful with players like Framber Valdez.
Yeah, the Tigers gave him 3 years, $115 million. And again, when your pitcher throws at a batter and you have to go out there and defend this guy, it's kind of an unwilling participant you are in all that.
I know. Well, you guys remember here in Baltimore when there was that big Yankee brawl, when Armando squared Tino Martinez up after Bernie Williams took him deep at Yankee Stadium. And that ended up being a terrible brawl. Well, I'm going to tell you something right now. This was set, and I know Al Clark had talked about things that happen before, okay? The Orioles had a team meeting just prior to that in Chicago about, maybe fighting other teams. We needed to stir things up a little bit. Ray Miller was like, fight amongst yourselves, man. That's what we used to do back in the Pirates. And we're like, well, we got to fight amongst ourselves. We had a great veteran team. And sure enough, a couple days later, we got in that brawl. And unfortunately, Ray didn't support Armando. Ray didn't support him drilling Armando. He could have said, listen, trying to back a guy off the plate, whatever, but you got to support your teammates. And I think right now, Hinch is in that little gray area. And so are the teammates out there in Detroit about trying to support their teammates so it doesn't get so far out of line.
Yeah, I was in the Bronx that night. I still remember the right hand of Alan Mills. Still remember that.
Yeah, for sure.
It was quite a night.
To help explain how much fun I have playing Fast Play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery, I brought in a home plate umpire. When I have the chance to win instant cash, it makes me feel far
Out!
And if I'm selected as contestant of the game, I can win $500 plus another $500 for every Orioles.
Home run!
And $5,000 for every Grand Slam. Doesn't it make you wanna
Play ball!
make the right call this season and play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery?
Here's something the car insurance companies don't want you to know. If you've been injured in a car accident, the insurance companies are already working against you. They have a team full of agents whose job is to give you as little as possible. That's why you need an experienced lawyer. Science & Kirk has been fighting for accident victims for over 50 years. They know how to handle the insurance companies and know how to get you maximum compensation. Don't go it alone. Remember, you have a lawyer. Call Science & Kirk today or visit youhavealawyer.com.
Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
Hey Oriole fans, it's Oriole Hall of Famer Mike Bordick here.
During my 14 years in the big leagues and over 1,700 games, I put a lot of miles on my body. Listen, I used to judge my days by how I'd walk down the stairs. Now I don't even think about it. I'm almost 60 years old and my legs have never felt better. That's why I trust the Good Feet Arch Supports. They've made a real difference in keeping me active, whether I'm coaching, staying involved in the game that I love, or just enjoying pain-free life here in Baltimore. Thanks to the Good Feet store, I'm still in the game.
Visit the Good Feet store today for a free fitting and test walk. Take the first step toward a pain-free life.
Cravings can strike at any time, and Royal Farms is ready to fuel your mornings with fresh brewed coffee, paired with protein-packed breakfast sandwiches and a side of those crispy hash browns. And when the midday hunger hits, bite into a world-famous chicken sub, loaded with flavor and leveled up with a side of Western fries. And when it's time to bring home a crowd pleaser, don't miss out on our world-famous chicken meals. Hand-breaded and a hit with the whole family. Whenever you crave, Royal Farms is ready.
Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time. Looking for a great place to watch the game, bet the races, and get in on the action without heading to the big city? Head to Greenmount OTB in Hampstead, where the action is always on. Watch every game and race on more than 40 big screen TVs while wagering on live horse racing or the big game at the Bet Park Sportsbook. You can bet at the window, at a kiosk, or right from your phone with the Bet Parks mobile app. And grab great food from Greenmount Station, home of Maryland's best crab cakes. Then keep the fun going next door at Greenmount Bowl. Greenmount OTB. Big time action in a hometown setting. 21 and over only. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, that does it. We want to thank our sponsors, including the guys out at Greenmount Station, Chris Richards and Dave Richardson. Dave's involved with the Preakness this week, but they have the best crab cakes in Baltimore. We appreciate all our sponsors' support. Until next time, be real, be kind, and make sure to be back for another episode, number 9, just ahead. The Bmore Baseball Podcast. We're officially out.